Hello, and thank you for listening to or watching the first episode of the Shuffle Football Podcast, which is part of the Shuffle Sports Network. I'm your host, Brendan Howe, and you might know our first guest, Levon Kirkland, as an All-American at Clemson, or maybe because of his time as an All-Pro linebacker with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 90s. Welcome, Levon, and thank you for being here with me today.
Well, thank you, Brendan, for having me here. I really, really do appreciate it.
Awesome. So I'm sure, just leading off here, you've probably heard this your whole playing career or and after. How many times do you think you've been asked about what it was like to play linebacker at your size?
I've been asked that it's probably the millionth time that I've been asked that. I've been asked that a great deal in my life. How do you do it, or some comment along those lines. But yes, I've been asked that plenty of times.
I figured
Yeah.
so. So you surprised a lot of people with how quickly you could move, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I did. I probably did. But to me, it was, simply I played all sports in high school. Really good athlete. Jumped a lot of rope, and yeah, it's just something that came naturally. I really can't explain it, but the weight that I gained, it was kind of gradual. It wasn't, all of a sudden, and the ability never really left. So it just worked out, and good thing I've been playing in the '90s. I don't know if I can do the same thing now, but it worked out for me. And I think as long as you're really quick in football, you're good. And I was really quick.
For sure, for sure. So did you have any times that came to mind where maybe an opposing player might have kind of been shocked that you were able to catch up to them or cover them the way that you could?
I think that was all the time. To be honest with you, I think it was all the time. My coaches never had that issue or that problem. They saw me do it over and over again. But I think, when people watch me on film, they were amazed. And then when they actually play, they were just like, man, how can someone your size move the way you did? And I really never had an explanation for them. I didn't really know myself, but it just kind of worked for me.
Definitely.
And, I was never, if you ever looked at my career, I was never injured. I never missed a game. Um, I barely missed practice ever. So I was not only a player that was a big player, but I was also a very durable player. And I was always, you always count on me because I was always there. So I don't really know. It's just, it's kind of a mystery to me too.
And you hear that all the time, right? The best ability is availability. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I was there, they could count on me to be there every day. So that was one plus that I had going for me.
for sure. So do you think, I think you kind of touched upon this just a few minutes ago. You think you might have, if you were to play today, you might have had your hand in the dirt, or would you like, or would you have liked the chance to try and cover receivers like Tyreek Hill in Kansas City?
Honestly, I think I would have adjusted. I think, you think about the modern diet that guys have now, you think about the way they worked out, the information that they had. I think I would have been fine. I don't think I probably wouldn't have been that big, but as a player, I felt like I would have been fine because I think players can adapt to whatever year it is or whatever time it was. So if you played football in the '90s, I think you could have played in the 2000s or in the '80s because you have that mindset to play. You have that moxie about you that you're gonna get it done. So I would have found a way to get it done too. I probably wouldn't have been as big, but I would have played in some point in time or in some way. I wouldn't have I probably wouldn't I didn't sit around just eat all day. I would have found I worked out pretty hard. And I would have found a way. I think things are just different. It was just different back then, just like it is now. So I would have adjusted to that situation. I might not weigh 260 or so, but I would have adjusted and been able to play linebacker.
Mm. So with that, I think I read some articles about how the Steelers kind of listed your weight at certain points in your career, saying that they might have kind of like they did with
They do it with everybody.
well, yep, yeah, for sure.
They
You
do it
see
with
that,
everybody. They make them taller, they make them smaller, they make them whatever they want them to make them.
and,
So I was no different than anybody else at that time.
and you see that all the way down into high school rosters too. So,
Right, yeah.
what linebacker, or do you think there might be any linebackers that closely resemble you that play today?
The only person that I could probably think about is a guy from Seattle. He's pretty big guy. Uh, what's his name? God, I can never remember his name. But that's probably the only guy with that kind of that size who can move the way I can move that I really could compare myself or, compare him to me. What's his name? Katie? Is it Katie? Ugh, can never remember his name. But Seattle guy, that's a pretty good linebacker. That's the only guy that I really think that kind of measured up.
Mm-hmm. So you played collegiately at Clemson, and Clemson was strong back then, but as we know, they weren't as powerful as they are now with Dabo Swinney, that sort of era. So what was your college experience like there?
Oh, it was great. It really was. I wasn't a guy who got recruited highly, but I did get recruited by Clemson in South Carolina, so that was pretty good for back then from my small town. It was a lot of fun because Danny Ford was he was old school, physical football teams, kind of like what the Pittsburgh Steelers, were like teams that were tough, knew how to run the ball, knew how to stop the run. A team that you never wanted to see on any given Saturday. So we were a good team. We had great defenses. Actually, one of our defenses unit was the number one defense in the country in the 1990s. Our linebackers at one time was rated the best linebacker group in the country. So we had a good team. We're real solid across the board. Clemson was a great atmosphere to be in as far as school was concerned as well. I mean, great little campus, not terribly big. Everything was kind of in the same spot. So classes were easy to get to. Great atmosphere. Great weather, mountains, lakes. So Clemson, I like Clemson. It wasn't far from Atlanta. It wasn't very far from Charlotte. So it was a great place. I really enjoyed my time there.
Definitely. And how fun was it for you, sort of on the other side, to be able to watch their runs? And they played Alabama in the national championship a few times. Deshaun Watson was there. Trevor Lawrence was there. This year was a bit of a down year, but what was it like to especially see them win that national championship against Alabama?
It was great. I was at that game to be honest with you, and I took a lot of pride in it that my school was able to reach those heights. We didn't do it when I was there, but we were good teams. We were like 10-2 for the most part when I was there for at least 3 years, and I think we ended up being 9-2-1 one year as well. So we were all. We were good teams back then, but to see what Dabo Swinney did with the team, as far as lifting them up to a championship level, especially when you're talking about being in a playoff system, I thought it was phenomenal. And being a part of that, you felt like you were a part of it. You felt like you were right there with them, and you took a lot of pride in it. I didn't get the ring or anything like that, but it was nice to see them do it, especially against a team like Alabama. Man, to do it to the top team, that was great, and to do it again was even special than that. And I think that they're going to get back there at some point in time. Hopefully, in the next 5 or 6 years. You never know, or they may not get back there, but hopefully they will get back there.
We saw that with Georgia.
Yeah, but they really represented the state of South Carolina and also the university very well. So, yeah, man, I was proud. I really was. I was really proud. You can, walk around amongst a lot of people with your chest sticked out when your team wins a national championship. So it was really cool.
Definitely. So you also had that All-American. I think you're consensus All-American in 1991. From what I saw, you're the most recognizable name out of that group. That may be because I'm a Steelers fan, and I've seen your name ever since I started watching football. So you played with that. If you had your choice coming out of college, who would you have wanted to draft you?
Actually, the team that drafted me, Pittsburgh Steelers. I was a Cowboy fan as a kid, but when I went through the whole combine and you do all these interviews, uh, Coach Cowher and the Pittsburgh staff really seemed like the place I wanted to be. He was a young coach. I was attracted to that, and they really seemed to want me at the time. I mean, so I tell you a quick story. When I was getting drafted that day, I actually went into my sister's bathroom, and the 38th pick was coming up. They got like 15 minutes. I went in there. I stared at the bathroom mirror, and I was like, "They're gonna pick me. They're gonna pick me. They're gonna pick me." I went back. I sat at the kitchen table where the phone was, and the phone rang. And I picked up the phone. It was Tom Donahoe, and he was like, "Hey, we're considering picking you this next pick." And I'm like, "Okay, wow, considering." So Charles Bailey got on the phone, and he was like, "Do y'all have cable TV in Lamar, South Carolina?" I was like, "Yeah, we got cable." And then he was like, "Do y'all have ESPN?" I was like, "Well, it kind of comes with the package, but yeah, we do." And he's like, "Well, congratulations. Welcome to the Black and Gold." And so I was tremendously happy because I got drafted by the team I wanted to get drafted by. And that doesn't happen for everybody. Normally it's just it's a roll of the die. But this time I was like, man, I got drafted by the team I really wanted to get drafted by. It was kind of funny because I really wasn't a Pittsburgh Steelers fan as a young kid, but it worked out for me.
That's
So it's cool.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that you kind of spoke it into existence there. So
Yeah. I was manifesting before people kind of really knew what manifesting was.
yep. So you go in the first year. Your stats aren't that gaudy. But I'm sure you learned a lot there, and you were able to sort of take over that starting position in your second year. What was that first year like for you? What was the adjustment like?
Well, I never played the inside linebacker until I got to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it was an adjustment as far as learning the position. I didn't really have instincts for it. I was more of a outside linebacker defensive end. So, it was unfamiliar territory. But I remember when I was at the Senior Bowl, Art Shell asked me to play inside linebacker, and I did pretty good, even though I didn't know what I was doing that much. And so when I got to the pros, I still had to learn how to play the position. Understand play action pass, what's a counter, sweeps, things like that. Learning how to, command a huddle, understanding formations, things of that nature. I didn't really know that much about it until I got to the NFL. So it took me about a year to really kind of adjust to the position. But once I came back that second year, I was determined to be a starter. I'll be honest with you, I'm just not a bench guy. I was never accustomed to sitting the bench. And I tell him, I can do it for 1 year, and I did it in college, and I did it in the NFL for 1 year. But I needed to get some action. I needed to be out there playing on the main defense, and I told myself I was going to get that job, man. That's what I ended up doing. I really ended up catching on pretty well. That second year, I had a full understanding of what I was doing, and I was given the job. I don't think I was given the job. I think I earned the job. And I think I've proven that over the next few years with the Pittsburgh Steelers that I deserve to play and deserve to be a starter.
Yep. So you took over for David Little, who was a Pro Bowler and a solid defender in his own right. How much pressure was on you in that second year? It sounds like you kind of knew what you're doing by that point, right?
Well, I knew what I was doing, but you still have to. The way it happened, you still had to. Back then, you really had to earn your spot amongst the players, not so much the coaches, but the players had to really. The players had to really accept you as a starter as well. So, I had to get the respect of guys like Kevin Green, Rod Woodson, Greg Lloyd. And that wasn't easy at first. It really wasn't, because David has been, David was there for like at least 12 seasons, and he was their leader. He was the guy who called the signals. Hardy Nickerson wasn't there anymore. So the inside linebackers were going to be new with me and Jerry Oslowski, and then also Chad Brown at the time. So I remember the first day I was the starter at practice, and I was tested, D linemen, everybody, they're trying to yell at me about getting calls in, stuff like that. And I just remember Coach Cowher coming up to me and just say, listen, you're going to have to take over the huddle. And I'm like, how do you do that? Because I wasn't, I'm not, let's say I'm not the typical linebacker as far as demeanor is concerned. I was actually, I'm more of a friendlier person than probably, what you expect me to be as far as playing that position. So I'm like, okay, and I wasn't really that outgoing or anything like that, which that position kind of calls for you to be a little bit more alpha than anything. And so I remember him telling me that. I remember going back to my dorm room. I thought about that all day and night. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? And then I just pretend that you're that guy. Just kind of fake it until you make it, kind of thing. And so that's basically what I did. I just kind of faked it until I made it. But what it did, the inside linebacker position, it made me understand the game much better. It made me become more of a student of the game. So, probably within, I would say, 2 or 3 games, that's when I kind of earned my respect among the guys.
Definitely, and that kind of goes back to that manifestation there. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
2 years later, after that, you did a well enough job to get a shiny new contract, and Pittsburgh reaches Super Bowl 30. You have a great game against your childhood or your favorite childhood team, including a sack. What do you remember about that game?
I just remember just being very excited about it. But one of the things that I truly do remember is before we go out to the game. I mean, I remember that season being a tough season at first. We were 3-4 going into that season, and we kind of changed it around a little bit and I think Coach Cowher did a great job of helping us put it in perspective, where we kind of basically said, forget about the 3-4. We're going to start the season over with. And we end up starting the season over with. We were just like, we were 1-0, 2-0. We actually won, I think we won 8 straight games during that run. And I remember at the time, as a player, I decided to do something that I thought was kind of, just radical, because, our linebackers were getting so much pub at the time, but I was kind of like the fourth guy, the guy that didn't really, I was kind of the forgotten guy, because I didn't make a lot of sacks or anything. I did a lot of the dirty work, stopping the run, carrying tight ends down the field, covering guys down the field, but wasn't really getting a lot of recognition for it. And I think I was too concerned about that at first. And then after, we started the season over with, I was just like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I don't care who makes a play. As long as I play to win. That's all I started caring about, just winning. And it's so funny, man. I started playing much better. It's so funny when sometimes you put, if your purpose is bigger than yourself. And that's what really kind of turned my game around a little bit. I started really just thinking about winning, and didn't really worry about plays, didn't care about making plays. Just wanted to play great enough to help us win. And that's kind of how my philosophy started. When I really became a Pro Bowl player, it started that way. But one incident did happen in the Super Bowl that I think really helped me take off in my career was Matt Millen was a reporter at the time, and he got word to me. He wanted to give me some advice. And he basically told me that that I was seeing the right things, that I had everything there was to be a really great linebacker. He said, you're seeing the right things, but you're not trusting it. He said, I need for you to trust your eyes. It's the first time I ever heard that phrase before. Trust your eyes. And it clicked. Bam. And I was just like, it just made me feel like whatever I was seeing was the right thing. Just go make the play. Just be aggressive. Be confident. And that was the game that I really turned it up and turned out to have a great game that game. And I carried that with me for a while. I was like, okay, I'm just going to trust what I do. And I had confidence every time I stepped out on that field from that point on. I think before that, I was making plays. I was doing really well. It wasn't that I wasn't doing well. It was just that made me go to the next level.
For sure. And that kind of leads me in here. You say that kind of changed your career a little bit or the way you played. You got all-pro nods in 96 and 97. What did those kind of mean to you?
I meant the world. It did. I mean, I think if you're a player, you want to get on, you want to be on that level. And the funny thing was, after the Super Bowl, I went to the Pro Bowl with Greg Lloyd. He invited a bunch of us to go there. I was one of the guys who went. And I got to see the Pro Bowl. And I stayed kind of in the background. I didn't really associate with any of the guys. I didn't talk to any of them. I just watched from afar. And I was like, next year, again, me with the manifesting, I was like, next year I'm going to be here. You know, I'm not going to come by as anybody's guest. I'm going to be a Pro Bowler. And I took that with me in the off season. That summer, I changed up a little bit. I started working out twice a day instead of just that once. And I kept just really believing that that's what's going to happen. That's what I'm going to be. Had a great training camp, probably my best training camp of all time. It really just carried it over in the season, just had a great season. So by going to the Pro Bowl before I was invited to the Pro Bowl, it gave me an opportunity to see it, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so I was just like, I'm going. I'm going to be a player next year. I'm not going to be somebody's guest anymore. And it was great, man, because it's a goal that you never know with goals sometimes. It's a process that you have to go through to attain a certain goal. But, man, it's satisfying when you do it. It really is. And so satisfying, man. It really just put me out there as far as being one of the best in the game at that point in time. And, you know, we had guys like Junior Seau, Brian Cox, Ray Lewis, and to be able to compete with those guys and be known as one of the better linebackers, it was awesome.
And I'm sure it didn't hurt that the Pro Bowl was still in Honolulu back then and not Orlando a few years ago and now Las Vegas. I'm sure I'd rather a trip to Hawaii than Las Vegas. So
yeah, you know, it would have been great to kind of mix it up, I think, you know, but Hawaii was excellent, man. It really was. And I got a chance to take my parents, you know, my first year there. And so that was a great gift for me to give, to see them, you know, all the hard work they did, man. It was great to take them somewhere like that so they can enjoy. And so that was the best part about it.
So all good things kind of have to come to an end, right? Your time in Pittsburgh ends a few years later. Can you tell me about your departure from Pittsburgh and the 2 seasons that followed with Seattle and Philly?
Yeah, you know, it was tough. I can't say it wasn't because I felt like I put in a lot of great work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I actually had a really good year that year. I really that was probably a bounce back year for me, to be honest with you. Had a great year coming back. I thought that, you know, I knew that team was going to be a good team. I knew it. I even actually said that we're going to, you know, everybody come back ready to go because we're going to, you know, we're going to take it to the Super Bowl. I felt like that was going to be a good team, and it was. They had a great year that year. The only thing that I wish was, and I mean, that's the one thing, you know, they don't really owe you much, but I thought that I got to a point of respectability that, they would have let me know before I heard about it. And then, I heard about it after the rumblings were going on. And I was caught blindsided by Ed Bouchette, who called me and was like, do you know that this is about to happen? And I'm like, I had no clue. Man, I mean, because you understand it's a business. You just kind of wish that, I thought that I'd put in enough work where they would have let me know. And that wasn't the case. And it left a little bit of bitterness in my mouth. But, after about a week or so, I got it and I understood. And I just like, you got to move forward. And a little known fact was they actually wanted to have me back after that. But by that time, I found another home in Seattle. And I remember talking to Coach Cowher, and I was just like, that's when I really turned into a businessman at that time. And I was like, listen, I'm going to go forward. This team really wants me to be there. I think a change of atmosphere would be great for me, and I wish you luck. And I talked to Mr. Rooney. I thank Mr. Rooney for those guys drafting me. So publicly, I never left bitter or whatever. It was just a surprise, and then, I just kind of quickly adjusted and say, okay, it's this business, and, that's just the way it is. And, I had no ill will toward the Pittsburgh Steelers. After that, I just kind of moved on.
So do you think maybe if they kind of give you a heads up, like, hey, we're gonna let you go, we want you back, do you think that's a bit of a different situation where you don't end up in Seattle and you come back to Pittsburgh after that season?
It could have been, but then I thought about, like, well, they still can cut me.
Yeah.
Like, what if I go, what if I agree with, for less money, go to a place where I know in the back of my head, but they really don't want me, and they want to test the waters. And I thought, like, okay, well, going back, even though it's familiar, it would be uncomfortable, and there would be some, there'd have been some tension there, I know. So I went to where I thought that I was wanted and needed. So I had to make they were making a business decision. I had to make a business decision.
For sure.
So I don't think it would have been good for me to go back. I think that they would have cut me and got rid of me in some kind of way. So I didn't want to go through that, wanted to have a fresh start. I think it was time for me to get a fresh start. And that's what I did.
And you did well in Seattle too. I think you had north of 100 tackles that season.
Yeah, kind of good year that year.
Kind of earned yourself into another deal with Philadelphia for the last season of your career. What was Philly like?
I really liked playing for Philly. I did. Philly was a lot of fun because they were winning, and they had opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, and it was challenging again. Seattle, we were just an okay team. We were gonna really make a lot of hay in the playoffs, but Philly was a team like I was excited to be a part of. It was a good team. There were a lot of good players there, and I came in after Jeremiah Trotter left, and it was fun because now I had to compete for the starting job, which I kind of thought was like, okay, well. Gosh, I haven't competed for a job in a while, so I thought that was challenging. I thought it was fun. But I actually told the guy that I was competing with, he was a much younger guy, and I was like, listen, man, we can really help each other out. You can help me with kind of understanding the scheme. I said, but I can teach you how to play the game at a very high level. And me and Barry Gardner got along really well. We did. We got along well. We shared some playing time, but I ended up being the starter. And I think it's because, I just had a renewal, a freshness there, and I ended up playing pretty well for those guys too. So, I was a ball player no matter where I went.
Exactly. So with that, you played for you played in front of three very passionate fan bases in Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Philly. They all have devoted fans. We know the 12th man in Seattle, and you've heard the stories about the fans in Philadelphia. Do you have any stories about any of those three fan bases?
Uh, Gosh, they're all positive situations for me. It wasn't really the 12th man when I went to Seattle, but good fan base. They love their team. Philly was just I tell you what, Philly. I have one story with Philly fans. I was in training camp, man, and some dude, man, just kept calling my name like, "Welcome to the real part of Pennsylvania." Blah blah blah. He was talking so loud that everybody heard him. And I'm like, thank you. Can I get back to doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And so that was kind of a funny story. I just think that there are different fan bases, Philly and Pittsburgh. I think the Philly fans are kind of up in your face a little bit. At that time, they were just desperate to win a Super Bowl, haven't quite gotten there yet. Pittsburgh Steelers fans are passionate, but it just seems like they understand the game a little bit better as a whole. They didn't disturb you as a fan base. They wouldn't really all in your face. But they were definitely passionate for the Steelers. It was just like, this is our team. I think Philly fans would turn on you in a second. I think they were passionate about you, but if you were losing, they was just like, they didn't have any emotional intelligence. They would just flip on you and they'll boo you. I mean, it was just like that, where you had to be really horrible that day to get booed by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Definitely.
So that's the difference that I saw in the fan bases.
Definitely. And Philadelphia fans once turned on Santa, so they'll turn on anyone.
Yeah, they'll throw batteries and snowballs loaded with glass. I mean, whatever. They were just a wild bunch, just really out of control.
For sure. So with all of that, I saw you tried your hand in coaching in Arizona and a few other stops there. What are you up to nowadays?
Well, I am the vice president of a nonprofit here in South Carolina called the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, where we educate, empower, and encourage student athletes. One of the issues that we have in South Carolina is that our students are really not, ready for college or careers. So we come up short that way. We're, like I said before, we're ranked 43rd, which isn't great. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to galvanize people who are trying to make that better. And we do that by having a podcast called the Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland. And we talk about sports and leadership. We interviewed the greats from South Carolina. We also do a ceremony that's called the Football Hall of Fame. And then we also do something that I'm really proud of. We do what we call the Bridge Builders Excellence Award. And in that, we basically award our young people for being great, for being students that are higher than a 3.2, who do great work in the community, and also are really good football players. So we award that. Our next step is to try to help middle school students get to that level too. So it's basically because I'm from the state of South Carolina and I really care about our students and our student athletes, especially because I was one. But we want to make sure that they get all the support, the network that they need going forward. So that's what I do as far as that is concerned. And then I'm also going back to school to get my master's in psychology. I do 2 podcasts. One is called Believe in Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland. The other one, as I mentioned before, it's an Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland. And I do camps during the off season, and I also do speaking engagements as well. So my plate is pretty full.
Definitely. And that's all awesome work, especially it kind of comes full circle there. So
Yeah. You always try to give back. God bless me with some amazing experiences, amazing knowledge, and you just try to give that knowledge and experience back.
definitely.
So that's what I'm doing.
you're kind of able to give some of that to me today, and I really
Oh,
appreciate your time here. So
yeah.
thanks once again for joining me, and it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Brendan. I really appreciate it as well. Anytime you need me on the show, make sure you give me a call, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Be
Yep.
good, my man.
Yep. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.